and it's still hot. But you guys are here. You guys are the fans. You guys is going to what turn Texas blue in 2022. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Let's get up for Rohit. Thank you so much for coming out on a very hot October day. I was promised cooler weather, but I guess it's not here yet. My name is David Nguyen. I am the president of the Asian American Democrats of Texas here in Houston. As many of you know, Houston is home to one of the largest Asian American communities. Obviously, it's not from California and New York, but we're very loud, we're very proud, and we're here to stay. I'm very honored to be able to host this event right here in the heart of Asia Town and be able to rally behind so many amazing candidates that we have this year. We have about 30 different AAPI candidates running across the state in so many offices, from city council all the way up to state rep, so many positions. And I hope that in 2024 and beyond, we can double that number and have 60 and even more, so that we can elevate and uplift the Asian American community, so that we are no longer silenced, we are no longer sidelined, and that we are the margin of victory. And now I'd like to turn it back to State Rep Ji Woo, who will introduce to you the guy who you've been waiting for, the man of the hour. Thank you, guys.
I was told you guys were me. No, is that not true? Dinah's here for me. Come on, Dinah. All right. Hey, y'all. I'm going to introduce Mento, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my community. And let me tell you, let's just start with this. When I grew up, I didn't want to be Asian American. When I was growing up, I didn't want to be Asian American. Can you think about that? When I looked around, I didn't see any Asian Americans on TV. There were no Asian Americans in movies, on the radio. There were barely any Asian Americans in office anywhere. And that made me not welcome. That made me not want to be Asian American. I feel like I'm the weirdo, right? And when I grew up, I learned differently. And I learned to be proud of myself. I learned to be proud of my community. I learned that I and my culture and my background has its own worth, and it's valuable, and it is something that's important. And this is why we're here today. This is why I'm here in this freaking hot weather, lining you guys up for Beto. Because the Asian American community in Texas is the fastest growing community in the state. It is the fastest growing community in the entire state of Texas. The Asian community in Texas is where I always say is where California was 30 years ago. And look at their power now, and look at what they add to that state. And this is why electing Beto O'Rourke is so important. Because in the time that I have been in politics, we have been shown nothing but disrespect from the Republicans. I'm going to tell you a little story. This is back in 2018. And this is back when Beto ran the first time. The Republicans in Harris County, the Republicans had only one Asian American elected office, and that was Judge Teresa Chang. Someone who was beloved by our community, someone who was another award-winning judge, one of the highest ranked judges. And she was one of the only people to be primaried out of her seat by the Republicans. Do you know why they got rid of her? She didn't do anything. Her opponent went around to all the clubs, all the groups, and said, I don't like her accent. I can't understand what she's saying, despite the fact she's been here 40 years, has a PhD and a law degree, and has been a sitting judge, the former district clerk, but I don't like her accent. That's the respect the Republicans have shown the Asian American community. Let me tell you another story. This was last year. In 2021, I carried a bill a non-binding resolution, simply a statement by the legislature to say that as the legislature and the governor, we oppose anti-Asian hate. That's all it said. Nothing else. We oppose the hatred and the violence that has been put upon the Asian American community in the last few years. It was killed by Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. A simple, non-binding resolution that simply said, we oppose hate. And when our office pestered them, said, why isn't this bill moving? Why is this bill dying slowly? The response was simple and clear. It's simply not important to us. This is the way the Republican Party of Texas has treated the Asian American community. This is their piggy bank. They come here, they raise money, they get checks, and they pat us on the head and say, oh, you guys are so good, you guys are so good, so hardworking. But when our community came out in 2020 and 2021 and said, the rhetoric that you guys are using, the rhetoric that Donald Trump uses, the rhetoric that denigrates us, that dismisses us, that diminishes us, that mocks us, puts our lives in danger. And we are simply asking you to not use that rhetoric. That's all we're saying. Do whatever you want. Just don't make our community the target. That's all we asked them to do. What was their response? It's not really that important to us. And they kept doing it. And they kept doing it. And they kept doing it. And we saw violence across the nation spike throughout. And so they come here and they raise money when they want something. And they want our votes. But when we go and ask them, this is our time of need. This is our time of support. What will you give us? They gave us nothing. And so that's why we need a governor who will listen to the Asian American community, who has Asian Americans on his staff, who has Asian Americans ready to go for his administration, who will make sure that Asian Americans get the respect that our community deserves. We're tired of being quiet. We're tired of being the model minority. We're tired of being patted on the head and told, oh, you guys are such good little workers. It is time for our community to stand up. It is our time to shout and be loud and say, we want Governor Beto O'Rourke!
All right, let's hear it for Representative Jean Wu. That's some real fire. Hey, thank you all for being here. Listen, lots of alternatives right now, lots of ways that you could choose to meet this moment. We have a state that is attacking every single woman, every single girl right now, completely lost bodily autonomy, the ability to make your own decisions about your own future. For those parents, as Amy and I are, of young kids, you now live in a state that leads the country in the number of school shootings. Gun violence, the leading cause of death for children and teenagers. I don't have to tell you that last February in the energy capital of the world, when the temperature dropped, the lights didn't turn on, the heat stopped running, the water no longer flowed because it was frozen in your pipes. And for anybody who cares about the cost of living in Texas, and that is all of us, we are now paying more in taxes here in Texas than our counterparts are in California. One can be forgiven for wondering whether this is the place in which they should stay and raise their kids or start their business or plant their flag or make their stand. Or if they have the resources and the privilege to go elsewhere, maybe you just pick up and move somewhere else. But you've chosen to come here to be with all of us today, 9 days away from when early voting begins in the most important election of our lives. And here's my theory of the case. The power grid failure, the the total attack on women, an abortion ban that begins at conception with no exception for rape or incest, the fact that the governor has yet to lift a finger 20 weeks after Uvalde, when 19 children and 2 teachers were slaughtered in their classroom, has yet to do a single thing to make it any less likely that that happens in any other classroom in any other part of the state. The fact that teachers are leaving the profession by the tens of thousands because we so badly treat them and underpay them and forced to perform to this high pressure, high stakes standardized test that in no way effectively measures the potential of that child or the effort expended on their behalf. This craziness and extremism, in other words, is not reflective of us or the people of Texas. It may represent Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick and those who are in power right now, but what it speaks to is a democracy that is badly broken. When it is harder to vote in the state of Texas than any other state in the union, when it is harder to get your name on the rolls to be able to register to vote in this state than it is anywhere else in America, that explains what we have right now. 725,000 people in Harris County were eligible to vote in the last election, but didn't cast a ballot. 725,000. Since then, nearly 300,000 new people have entered the rolls. New citizens who've naturalized and are eligible to vote. Young people who've turned 18 or 19 and just got registered. Nearly 1 million people who we have yet to hear from, whose votes have yet to be cast. My theory is that when they vote, we will no longer have this extremism as the defining feature of Texas government. We'll have people like Mike Collier and Gene Wu, folks who care about the people in this state, regardless of whether you're a Democrat, an independent, a Republican, or otherwise, coming together to do the big things before us, making sure that teachers are paid enough not to work a second or a third job, fixing, as Mike Collier would say, the damn grid so the lights work this next winter, bringing down our electricity bills in the bargain, ensuring every woman can make her own decisions about her own body and her own future everywhere throughout the state of Texas. But all we need to do right now is all we can with what we have where we are, because this attack on our democracy is preventing us from realizing our greatness. And look, if the great sin, as Gene Wu pointed out earlier, of Republicans is voter suppression, and specifically targeting communities of color, including Asian Americans in this state, to try to make it less likely that they use political power, then that sin committed by Democrats, with present company excluded, is to take these same communities for granted and to not show up and to not meet voters where they are. So in this campaign, not only are we here today, we're on the doors of these voters in this community every single day, listening to them, speaking with them, making common cause to make sure that we win this election. And it will be, in my opinion, some pretty profound, poetic political justice when the very people targeted for suppression and intimidation, drawn out of this democracy, are brought in by all of us to provide the margin of victory on election night, November 8th. You all with me on this? One last thing that I want to say, because it's on my mind and it's on my heart, and Gene Wu just referred to this. Look, I'm well aware that I speak to you in the most diverse city in the United States of America. It's something that I'm extraordinarily proud of. It is something that makes us great, makes us successful, makes us strong, and yes, I would argue it makes us safe. But over the coming days, you will hear Mike Collier's opponent and the sitting governor, my opponent of the state of Texas, try to demonize and vilify immigrants. We'll ask them legitimate questions. Governor, Lieutenant Governor, why can't you keep the lights on? Why can't you pay teachers enough to keep them in the classroom? Why can't you reduce the cost of living and bring down our property taxes? They will point to the border and try to scare us of an invasion coming into this country. And not only does that end up in hateful rhetoric, I mean, the word invasion itself, or words like infestation, or describing human beings as animals, that dehumanizing rhetoric allows some to treat others less than human. Kids in cages, or separated from their parents, or in El Paso, Texas in 2019, 23 people shot dead by someone who said he came to my community to repel the invasion of Hispanics and immigrants who are going to take over this country. Listen, this is a moment where we need to stand strong and remind the rest of the world, and certainly the state of Texas, that we, better than anyone else, understand the issue of immigration. We are the defining border state. Those who have come to Texas from the planet over have made us great, have made us strong, have made us safe by their very presence. And all we ask is that this state lead right now at this moment of truth to make sure that, yes, those who come here follow our laws, and that our laws here in Texas follow our values, our needs, our reality here on the ground in Houston. We are going to ensure that there are safe, legal, orderly paths for those to come here, to join family, to work, to seek asylum, to make this state and this community even better because they've had the chance to come here. Let's make sure that we speak to that, to our friends, to our neighbors, to the Republicans and Democrats alike in our lives. Let's go win this election and get Texas back on the right track. Thank you very much.
All right, we have one more special guest here, our own